What is the biggest fight you've ever gotten into? Like, do you fight with your siblings often? If you do, what are you fighting about? For me and my sister, it's always about like clothing. Like if my sister wears my shirt, I'm just like, that's my shirt, like don't wear it. Or if she has something that I really want and I want to borrow it all the time and I don't ask to borrow it, I feel like this is always what we fight about. It's something I'm still really working on today, of not being jealous easily. Not with just my sister, but with tons of people in the world around me. And James, he knows that this is something that we are going to struggle with as he starts to talk about what it means to be a friend of the world, how we live our lives. He brings up this topic of jealousy. He says this in chapter 4. What causes quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you? You want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. First of all, Katie, if you're watching this, I've never schemed to kill you for the things that you have that I don't have, but the point remains the same, is how often do we see something, get fixated on it, and we want that so badly. This might not just be a t-shirt that you really want that someone owns or a car, but a lot of things, just like the way someone looks, the way someone acts, the way people love that person, the boyfriend that they may have. There's so many things. We look at the people around us and we kind of judge them and say, I wish I had that life. Have you ever done that where you're just scrolling on your phone and you're just, wow, this is so cool, and you're not even thinking about your own life, just how you wish you could be like them? James continues to say this. You are jealous of what others have, and when you can't get them, you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And even when you do ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You only want what will give you pleasure. So like my arguments with my sister are always stemmed from this like desire to have what she has, and maybe you too. And I wish it was this easy. James just says you don't have it because you're not asking the Lord for it. You don't have contentment because you're not seeking the Lord for that contentment. And I wish it was just that easy. I wish that we had a God where I could just pray to him and whatever I wanted would just appear. God, I just wish I had this lifestyle, and then it would happen. And James, he says it's that easy. You don't have the things you want because you're not asking God from them. But as a Christian, is it that easy? Never did Jesus say, or James, or the Bible say, you're gonna get everything you want as a Christian. It says, do not be jealous. So how do we get to the point where we're content where we were at without being jealous of the other people? God isn't this genie in a bottle that just gives you what you want, but he gives you what you need. There's this verse in Psalm, and it's delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And I read that, and I'm like, wow, if I just really love the Lord, if I delight in him, I'm gonna get anything I want. Back to this genie in a bottle. I can be successful, I can be loved, I can be funny, I can have the world and everything set out how I want, because that's what this verse says. And if the Bible is true, then if I should just get everything I want. But I think the thing is if you truly delight in the Lord, the desires of your heart will be different. The desires of your heart, they're gonna reflect him. Honestly, God is probably like, Ashley, you already have it. And what do I have? I already have his grace. I already have his forgiveness. I already have his inheritance and his blessings. I already have salvation. And so when I look at the world, what do I really need? If I'm delighting in the Lord, what is my heart's desire? It's those things. And James says, that's the key. If you are just jealous of the world, you're not gonna see what you really have in him. So then he continues to say this, you adulterers, don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? I say it again, if you wanna be a friend of the world, you have made yourself an enemy of God. And that's because if you're so focused on the world, you're no longer focused on the Father. You're chasing after idols, after success, after fame, after popularity, when God doesn't call us to have any of those things if we're following him. And when we focus on those things, we forget what is really important. James continues in chapter 4 and he says, resist temptation. And that's a lot easier said than done. I can say just delight in the Lord, have his desires, and you can't just be like, done. But what do we do? And James finishes the chapter by giving us a perspective. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like a morning fog. It's here for a little while and it's gone. James gives us this perspective is when we're so focused on the world around us, of how short our life really is in comparison of eternity with him. So in those times when you're struggling, when you're like, I just really want what other people have, I'm too focused on everything else, and I know I should be focused on God, take a moment and realize how short your life is and how much greater God is than what you're going through and what you could possibly have for yourself. And so when James says in verse 15, you ought to say is this, if the Lord wants us to, we will live and do this or that. How can we remember to have an eternal perspective? To live a life that's glorifying to God and seeking after His will. I guarantee once you shift your perspective to that, watch God change your life. See contentment that you've never had before.